Welcome to the West Parry Sound District Museum's YouTube channel, proudly sponsored by the Ontario Trillium Foundation. Each month we will be exploring a new artifact from our collection. If you like what you see, please subscribe.
In honor of Remembrance Day, this month we are focusing on stories from the First and Second World Wars, told by Parry Sound veterans and their families. January 27th, 1918, Malta. I think I mentioned in my last letter that I was dining last night with Dr. and Mrs. Sutherland of Ottawa. Well, I had some real Canadian lemon pie, and 2 big pieces of it at that. After dinner we sat and yarned until about 11. It was certainly fine to be in a home, a Canadian one at that, again. And this was the last place I would have expected to find someone from home. Your loving son, Charlie. I went under an operation on the 15th of February. They cut the wound open again and removed 2 pieces of dead bone. I got quite a dose of chloroform this time and was delirious for quite a while afterwards, but I'm feeling much better now. I'm still abed in the surgical ward. The sister in charge is a lovely woman and told me I might be able to get up when my fever was all gone. 2 of the nurses in each ward came in to see me yesterday. I'm writing this with my left hand, and it seems kind of awkward. A letter from Gunner Kitts.
We went overseas on the Ile de France, and that was quite an experience. I don't know how many people were on there. I think something like 10,000. And if if a submarine had ever got its sights on us, let a couple of torpedoes go, well, we would all be underwater. But anyway, once we arrived in February in Greenock in Scotland, most beautiful thing I ever saw is the green hills of Scotland. And it was just all new to us, We're looking over the side at the Scotch stevedores working down there and everything. Just quite a thing. Given a couple of days sort of orientation and given a chance to enlist with different infantry regiments. So I recall that there was the Argyll and Southern Highlanders that we could go to, or the Lincoln and Wellens, or the Algonquins. And I said at the time, well, gee, my wife comes from Parry Sound, and that's where the Algonquins come from. I'll go in the Algonquins. So that's where I ended up. And we trained in the south of England for 2 or 3 months, and ended up on 25th, I believe, of July over in France. And the 29th of July was my birthday. I was 20 years old. That's the first time that I was in action at all. And I recall very clearly that we were given an assignment to sort of back up the Cameron Highlanders. They were a machine gun regiment. Sit in behind them just to be orientated with the battle action. But the first thing, we were just getting in place, and some shells come down, and the 3 of our guys were killed right in the, and that was something to, really gives us a shock, because all of a sudden we saw the real thing. It was Operation Totalize, they called it, I think. And the idea was that our regiment, along with others and tank outfits and everything else, quite a number of us, were to go forward and try and capture Falaise. It was a little town about 20 miles from Caen, where we were, and August the 9th, or August the 8th rather, we started up towards Falaise. One of my horrible experiences to me was to see the tanks blowing up and on fire, and the guys jumping out, burning, their clothes burning and everything. Ended up that coming out alive about 60 out of 120, 130 so. And come the end of the day, it was just coming dark. The Germans did come in with their tanks right on top of us and took us prisoner. So that was the end of the fighting for me, anyway, and for quite a number of us.
One of our very early trips to Stuttgart was kind of hair-raising at the beginning. We hadn't got too far along, and the mid-upper gunner called me up and said there's a Heinkel 111 shooting at a Lancaster just over to starboard and about 500 feet above. Well, we really couldn't do anything about it, and shortly after, he called up and says, "Dive, Tommy, dive." I used to be called Tommy at the time by the crew. And I dove. I didn't hesitate for a second. And this flaming Lancaster came drifting right over us, not too far above us. If he hadn't called to me and if I hadn't dove the aircraft, it could have flown into us. So that was the aircraft that he had seen being shot at, and it was a ball of flame. Another incident that really shot the adrenaline around was when the rear gunner called up and said there's a FW-190 on our tail. This is a Focke-Wulf 190 single-engine German fighter. And I heard his guns go, and you could smell the cordite drifting back. And he says, "I got it! I got it!" He was all excited. And apparently, he probably hit it, but it was never counted because there were no other sightings. There had to be another sighting by somebody else to confirm, or they wouldn't count it. My engineer claims that he saw it going down, but it may just have been damaged. So my gunner was very disappointed. However, it was a hair-raising little incident for a short while. We also had another brush with a fighter in an early trip coming back from Kiel. Rear gunner called up and said there's a Ju-88 out here. It's a Junkers 88, a twin-engined fighter-bomber type aircraft. And we were over 10 tenths cloud at the time. I peeled off and dove for the cloud, several thousand feet. This was our second night trip, and we're kind of nervous. And we got into that cloud, and we flew through the cloud for miles and miles and miles. Cal said, "Maybe he has radar and can see us." And I said, "Oh," because I was going to come up again. But we thought maybe we better stay in the cloud. And eventually we got down below the cloud and made it to base. We didn't have many fighter situations like that. We saw some. I remember one night, full moon night, going to Cologne. We didn't really like the full moon at all because you felt like a sitting duck. And I remember looking way down several thousand feet below me to the side, and a German, probably a Messerschmitt 110 or 210, which is a twin-engine fighter, was doing a curve of pursuit on a Lancaster. And it looked like a black and white photograph down there. It really stood out. I only saw it for a few seconds, and then we were past, so I don't know what happened. And we're flying along, and all of a sudden, a Lancaster, a few hundred yards ahead of us and to our starboard, exploded. It just exploded, with nothing left. Just went completely to pieces. We feel that probably a lucky flak or an unlucky flak shot hit the bomb load. Came through the bomb door. It set it off. But it was there 1 minute and gone the next second.
one of our men from the reserve was all set to go overseas just during the Second World War, and he was scared. So he knew my father was in the war, the first war. He came back, and I guess he thought that he would go over and see my dad. So he came over, and he was telling me this much later. I guess he came over and saw my father. He said to my father, you went to war and you made it back. I'm scared. I want you to give me some advice. Well, what did you do? My father just simply said to him, if you're in a situation, and if you think that your life is very much in danger, he said, just get a twig off a tree and put it in your mouth and chew it and keep it in your mouth. So that's what he did. Whenever he was in real danger, he would take the dry twig off a tree and chew it and keep it in his mouth. But he came back. He never questioned my father why. So, well, he came back. And he said, well, I'm going to go over and see Francis. Ask him, what's this all about? So he went over to see my father. And he says, he told me what to do and I did it. And here I am. I got through some scrapes that were pretty close. And why did you tell me that? And all my father told him was, you can't see a dead thing. See, a dry branch is dead. Kept it in his mouth. They didn't see him.
Right.
So, I ran home down the railroad track, parkways down the railroad track and across the garden. And I went running up to the house. I got about halfway up to the house, and I looked at the house. There was something very wrong. And I looked. And it suddenly dawned on me, there was no light. All I could see was just a silhouette of the house. There was no light. There was always a light there when my father was living. And I looked at it and I realized that it was in darkness. And I think that was the most dreadful moment of my life. Because it was then that I realized, like the nurse said, he was dead. It was a crushing moment for me. I just stood there, standing there reeling. Reality is sometimes pretty hard. And there was a light, like a moonbeam coming down from the moon to the side of the house. And on that moonbeam, I saw someone walking up that beam. And I recognized there was only one man that walked like that. And that was Francis Beglegarbo. He was going home. He wasn't dead. He was going home.
It was a good feeling when you came back across the channel and you saw England again? Would you?
It's a great feeling.
Yeah.
Yep. And when you saw those lights all come on after you'd been flying in total darkness for 8 hours approximately, suddenly you're surrounded by friends. Gee, one thing I forgot to mention that is really quite important, I think. We didn't know while we were on operations what percentage of losses were. We had no idea. Tried not to think about it, actually. And it was some time later we discovered that it was between 55 and 60% losses in Bomber Command. The highest percentage of any military body.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to make it through with just that one piece of travel.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We were so lucky.
Gosh.
I mean, we had a very easy tour. There were a lot of guys that had very rough ones,
Yeah.
that who survived them, you know.